Are we live? Not yet. Huh. Hmm.
13 seconds.
Yeah. It says live here. I think I'm going live, but I don't know what's happening right now. Let's see. I think
Yep, you're there.
you can see me. All right. I think we are live. All right, cool. I want to see the comments. Here we go. Okay. So, hello everyone. Can how's the audio? Can you hear my audio? All right. Looks like the audio is good. Uh, we'll start in a couple of seconds. Let me just kind of get situated here. All right. Welcome, welcome. And I'm glad that you're here today. And today we're diving into something that can completely change the way you grow your business. And it's really just by knowing your numbers. But before we dive into this, I want to share a quick story. So last Friday, I drove a friend to Atlanta to pick up his plane. And while we're at the airport, he was talking to another pilot and basically saying that, oh, we're flying VFR today. And I'm not a pilot, I'm not in aviation. So naturally, I was curious and I asked, what's VFR? And he explained to me, oh, VFR is visual flight rules. So basically, it's a way to fly with minimal interaction with air traffic control. So it's basically flying the plane by feel and navigating based on what you, as a pilot, what you can see from the inside the plane, right? And this type of flying is ideal if there's clear visibility and if you're only flying at a certain altitude. So I got more curious. I tried to learn more about this. So I learned that there's VFR and there's IFR, right? So IFR is instrument flight rules, which means when you navigate, the air traffic controller is guiding you every step of the way. Okay, it's relay. So you're relaying what you see on your instrument cluster, right? And relaying it to the ATC, and the ATC instructs you, tells you what to do, basically. So ideally, this happens when you're flying in higher altitudes or if there's a visibility problem, right? If there's bad weather. And then it occurred to me as I learned these things, it occurred to me that flying a plane is similar to running a business because most businesses, they run their businesses like flying VFR, right? They rely on their own perspective based on what they see, basing their decisions on how they feel rather than basing it on what the data says because there's no data. Because if you want your business to fly high, you need your instrument cluster. You need to know exactly what to adjust. You can't be arbitrarily adjusting settings on the plane, right? You need to know exactly what to adjust, what it does, and why you're doing it. And same with business, right? And you want to be confident when you're adjusting things so you know what happens next after that. And you're not guessing, it's not guesswork. And I say this because the more I speak to businesses week after week, the more I see this pattern. Okay. And this is why I decided to go live today to show you these 10 important metrics that every small businesses need to know. And these numbers, these are not just for big corporations. These are essential for small businesses too, like your business, like my business. And once you know them, you'll finally know what's working, what's not working, and where to focus next, what to do. So I want you guys to stick with me because by the end of today, you're going to see your business in a whole new light. And at the end of this live stream, I'm going to show you how to do it, right? And I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. If you're not tracking these metrics, you don't have a business. You have a very expensive hobby. And I'm just going to say it outright. Okay. So these are the core metrics that every small businesses need to know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen and we'll go over each one of them. Okay, let's see. How do we do this? All right, here we go. So these are the 10, or actually these are 11. I added a bonus one. So 11 small business metrics. And these are core metrics, right? That we all need to know. First, this is the customer acquisition cost, the customer lifetime value, your average order value, your retention rate, your lead velocity rate, your sales conversion rate, your cost per lead, your profit margins, your revenue per employee, your recurring revenue, and your cash burn rate and runway. So we're going to go each one. Okay, so let's start with your CAC, with your customer acquisition cost. What does this mean? So your customer acquisition cost, it tells you how much it costs to get a new customer. Okay. Why does this matter? Why do we need to know how much each customer costs? A customer is a customer. It's going to give us money. But why does it matter? Well, if you don't know how much it costs you to get a new customer, you won't know objectively if your marketing and sales efforts are sustainable. And this applies to, especially to everyone, but especially to those that have multiple ways of acquiring customers, right? There's people who network, you run ads, you have a BNI. There's a lot of different ways to do this, right? So if you don't know how much it costs, every new customer spends money with you, all right? So how do we know if your marketing and sales efforts are sustainable? You just won't. So what happens if you ignore this? And if you don't have this number, that's you. You're ignoring this, right? So what's the price? So if you're unaware of this, what happens is you'll be spending more money acquiring new customers. And eventually, your marketing and sales efforts will bleed you dry. All right? So the key takeaway when it comes to this metric is that customer acquisition cost shows you exactly how much it costs to win a customer. If it's higher than what a customer is worth over time, you are losing money. And it's easy to not see this, right? Because when you get a new customer, they pay you money. So in your perspective, at that moment, oh, it's money coming in, right? But what a lot of businesses don't calculate is how much did I really spend to get this customer, right? So this will tell you that, okay? So one key element here, or one key metric, is your customer acquisition cost. Now the next is the customer lifetime value. What is the customer lifetime value? It tells you how much money each customer brings into your business over the entire time they buy from you. So if you're a store, if you're a retail store, right? If you're not tracking your customer lifetime value, you don't know if when I come in, if I go once a month, once a week, and if I spend, $5, $10, $15 each time, you won't know what my value is if you're not tracking it, right? And why does this matter? Why do we want to track this? Who cares? They're spending money, right? Why do we want to track it? Well, this number tells you how much you can afford to spend on acquiring and keeping customers. Again, there's a cost in acquiring new customers, right? So the value, if you don't calculate the value of each customer, you could be bleeding over time as well, right? And what happens if you ignore this? If your lifetime value is low and you're unaware of it, you'll always feel like you're running in place because you're spending more than you're earning. Okay. Again, the spend is not up front, right? If you're not tracking this, you are bleeding money on your back end without you even knowing it. And you're wondering why, hey, we made the X amount of money this month. How come we're only keeping this much, right? Maybe because you're bleeding. Maybe because of this. Okay? So the key takeaway here is that knowing your lifetime value is one of the first steps you need to scale sustainably because it shows you how valuable each customer really is. when compared to your customer acquisition cost. Okay, so this is related to your CAC. So based on the two numbers, it'll tell you how valuable each one is to you, right? And if it's worth spending money for those customers. All right, so that's the second one. The third one is your average order value. What's the average order value? It tells you how much money each customer spends on average for each transaction. And this is especially important for businesses that are selling multiple things. If you have different services or a lot of different products, right? And this matters to you because if you don't know how much revenue you're earning for each transaction, you won't know whether or not your pricing strategy is working. And I hear this a lot. Some businesses will ask for help and they say, I think I need to change my pricing because they want to make more money. They just want to price higher. But that's sort of a knee-jerk reaction when it comes to, if you want to earn more revenue, the next thing they want to do is raise their prices. But if you don't have this data, then you don't know, right? Again, you can try it, but you'll be guessing. And what happens if you ignore this number? If your average order value doesn't improve, you'll be stuck needing more customers just to hit your revenue goals. And I see this every day. People are hustling. Business owners are hustling. I need new customers. I need new leads, right? Because they want to hit the revenue goal. But again, all right, this is where scaling gets painful because when you're in that point, you want to scale and all you think about is getting new customers, not realizing, hey, maybe we can adjust other things that'll give us more money or make us more money before we do this, right? So again, this is where your wheels are going to be spinning and your scaling will be painful. So the takeaway is raising your average order value makes every customer more valuable, and it'll help you scale faster without increasing your acquisition costs. I know this is a lot, but don't worry. We have, again, this is just an overview, but we got a solution to make this a lot easier for you. All right, average order value. Next up is retention rate. What is retention rate? Okay, so this shows the percentage of customers who continue to do business with you over a given time period, right? Or also known as repeat customers. And we all want repeat customers. So why? Why can't they just be like one and done? Well, your retention rate, it helps you understand if your product or your service is actually valuable to your customers, right? And this is more for evaluating how you're doing as a business as well. So what happens if you ignore your retention rate? Because if your retention is weak and you don't know it, if you're unaware of it, your business becomes a leaky bucket. You'll try to constantly replace lost clients that makes growth twice as expensive. Okay. So takeaway here is retention is the secret to sustainable growth. Okay. This is kind of obvious. The longer you keep your customers, the more valuable each one becomes, and it's easier to scale profitably. All right. So that's why this metric is also important. Next is the lead velocity rate. Okay, now it sounds very technical, but basically it just shows you how fast your qualified leads are growing month after month. And you're probably thinking, who cares? Leads are coming, right? Some more than others, but leads are coming. Why do we have to track this? Well, because if you're not tracking this number, you won't see whether your pipeline is growing or shrinking. Right? Again, one of the things that people don't normally care about, but if you do and once you do, you'll see different ways to improve your revenue. Okay. So what happens if you ignore this? Because if you don't know your LVR, you're going to be constantly spinning your wheels, chasing new leads. And this is what I see on a weekly basis. People are chasing leads day after day after day after day. Trying a lot of different things, nothing's sticking. They just want new leads, right? And what happens is maybe you're making enough from those leads, but you're not really scaling. You're not really growing. You're just getting enough for this month's expenses, right? And what happens is if you ignore this, this prevents you from optimizing the money making side of your business, right? So the key point here is that a rising LVR, it means your pipeline is filling and future sales are more predictable. Again, the key here is predictability because a lot of business owners don't know how many leads they're going to get next month. How many leads are they going to get 2 months, 3 months from now? You're just basically scraping every month trying to get as many leads as you can, but there's no predictability, and that's a problem. You can't scale if you can't predict. All right, next up is sales conversion rate. What is sales conversion rate? This shows the percentage of leads that actually turn into paying customers, right? It tells you how effective your sales process is at closing leads, okay, or closing deals. Why is it important? You make a sale, you make a sale. Well, you can't improve your sales skills if you're not measuring this. If you get 10 leads every week and then you only close 2 and then you're happy with it, right? How are you going to improve if you're not even measuring, right? So if you ignore this metric, what happens? If you're not tracking this number, you will spend a lot of time talking to people but not make any sales. Does that sound familiar? I see a lot of people networking. They talk to so many people. How many sales does that render? I don't know. But again, this is a question for you, right? You leave every call defeated and feeling like a loser because you spoke to 20 people, not made a sale. Again, that's the importance of tracking this. Okay? So your conversion rate, this is the bridge between leads and revenue. So improving this, it means making more money from the same number of leads. So you're not scraping leads. You're making more money. You're just being better at sales. But again, you can't improve this if you're not measuring it. So this is super important as well. Next is cost per lead. We talk about leads. We want leads. Leads everywhere. So it shows you, it's kind of self-explanatory, but it shows you the actual dollar amount it costs you to generate a lead. Now, this is important, especially if you have multiple lead sources, right? What are lead sources? Well, there's networking, there's an open networking, there's the BNI, the single seat networking, there's Facebook ads, maybe you're sending out mailers, maybe you're doing 10 other things to generate leads, right? So we need to understand how much each lead is actually costing you. Why? Because knowing this number helps you compare the effectiveness of different campaigns or lead sources. If you're spending 20 hours a week networking, right, then it's generating X amount of leads, and you're doing mailers, it's generating X amount of leads, you're doing Facebook ads. Which one is really working? But most businesses are like, well, a lead is a lead is a lead. It's coming in. It doesn't matter. Well, it does because, again, you're wasting your time if you don't know which ones are the most effective. What happens if you ignore this? Again, you could be bleeding money and not know it, right? Because, you don't know. You don't know which leads, which campaigns, which sources are more effective than the other. So you just spend money on all of them. And yeah, you're basically just losing money at that point. So pair that with low conversions, your sales conversion rate, and that means you're paying way too much just to have conversations and not making sales. The takeaway here is that the cost per lead tells you the true cost of filling your sales pipeline and if the leads are worth it, right? Because we talked to 100 people. Are all of them good leads? Probably not. But we won't know until you measure. All right. Cost per lead. Profit margins. Are you guys still with me so far? If you can type in the comments if you have questions or if anything's confusing, then we can visit it after going through all these. Okay. So okay, let's start with profit margin. Or next, profit margin. It shows you how much of your revenue you're actually keeping. Again, this is the most common thing where, well, money is coming in. I'm able to pay the rent. I'm able to pay everything that I can. So I'm good. Well, knowing your profit margins is important. Why? Is because it'll show you whether your pricing and costs are sustainable or if you're just running too lean or if you're just scraping. Right? And what happens if you ignore this? Again, you'll be spinning your wheels. Maybe the way you're spinning your wheels right now, right? You're getting more sales, you're getting more leads, you're getting more sales, but you'll just be as broke, right? Just at a bigger level broke. So the key takeaway here is that these profit margins, these are your reality checks. Okay, this will tell you and makes you honest, right? This will keep you honest and say, hey, am I actually growing? Am I plateauing? Or am I just spinning my wheels for scraps? I don't know, right? So, but this will tell you because growth costs money. Growth, it'll eat your cash. But if you have a healthy margin, it'll help you keep scaling with confidence, right? Because there's no such thing as scaling for free. It's going to cost money. So that means you got to have real good margins before you scale or as you're scaling. So that's why profit margins, super important. We're down to our last three, right? We're down to our last three. Revenue per employee. And I want to use the employee term here pretty loosely. It could be 1099s, it could be contractors, but basically people that are operating in your business. So this measures how much revenue each team member generates on average. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you only count the people that are generating revenue. If we have somebody cleaning your kitchen, right, not necessarily getting revenue, it gets included here. Why? Why do we want to do that? Well, because this shows how efficiently your business turns staff efforts into income. When it comes to staffing, maybe a lot of us are, solopreneurs or a husband and wife team. But when you start adding people to your team, whether it be employee, W-2 employee or 1099s, you want to be able to track how efficient, right, the staff performs in relation to your revenue and your income. And if you ignore this, because if your revenue per employee drops, right, and your team, and you don't know about it, what happens is your team becomes bloated and inefficient. What will happen next is your payroll will grow faster than revenue and you're shrinking your profits. Okay. And with shrinking profits, it's almost impossible to scale because you need money to scale. So the key takeaway here is that revenue per employee is a health check on your efficiency. It ensures you're scaling with a strong team foundation instead of just adding overhead. Because some businesses tend to we need more help, right? But if the numbers doesn't allow it, what happens, right? That means you're adding more payroll. Your profit will shrink just because you need someone to do something, right? So being able to track your revenue per employee metric, this helps you make better decisions when it comes to staffing. All right, last two. Next is recurring revenue. Okay, so the recurring revenue, it measures the predictable, repeatable income your business generates each month or year from subscriptions, memberships, retainers, or contracts. This is important, okay, because we want predictability. So let's talk about why this matters, right? Because again, it provides predictable cash flow that you can plan around. If you know that next month there's a recurring revenue coming in because, whether it be subscriptions, whatever it is, right? You can predict how much money you're making next month, next 2 months, next quarter, next 6 months, next year, right? And also for businesses that are seasonal, right? If you're a if you're a wedding photographer in Chicago and fall to spring is just dead, right? So this will help smooth out seasonal or one-off sales fluctuations. What happens if you ignore this? If you ignore this number, you won't be able to predict your income. It's simple as that, right? And I see this every day. Most people don't know where their money is coming from next month. They know it's coming, they just don't know from where. So it's really a hope and pray strategy. So if you don't build your recurring revenue, you're going to be stuck chasing new sales every month just to survive. Okay, so the takeaway here is that recurring revenue is the backbone of predictable growth. The more you build reliable income streams, the less you rely on chasing the next sale. Now, there's something I need to say here, or stress out here. Just because you don't have a subscription pricing model doesn't mean you can't have predictable ARR or MRR. So ARR is annual recurring revenue, MRR is monthly recurring revenue. So just because your pricing is not a subscription model, it doesn't mean you can't have this, right? It's just the question is how can we be creative? How can we have a predictable recurring revenue, even if I don't have a subscription pricing model? And there are ways to do that, by the way. So that's recurring revenue. Last is cash burn rate and runway. So the burn rate, it tells you how quickly your business is spending cash, okay? And your runway, it tells you how many months you can keep operating before you run out of money at that burn rate. Why does this matter to a small business? Because this will help you make smart decisions about hiring, about marketing, and expansion. You're not guessing when are we going like if we didn't make any more money next month, how long can you still operate? If you don't have this, you won't know, right? So this matters because it shows you how long your business can survive before needing new revenue or funding. What happens if you ignore this? If you're unaware, and if your burn rate is too high, and if your runway is too short, your business is basically a ticking time bomb, right? One bad month or something happening, right, could shut you down. So the takeaway here is that burn rate and runway, they're your survival clock, okay? They will tell you exactly how long you can keep scaling before the money runs out. And it'll also tell you what you need to adjust so you can buy more time and keep operating. Now, this is not only for Silicon Valley startups. Normally, when we hear burn rate or runway, that's usually on a startup context, right? Because as a startup, all you do is spend money in the first X number of years. But this is also important for businesses that are not just profitable, but are trying to be profitable. You need to understand how much resources you have and how much time you have before you actually call it quits, right? So these are the 10 important metrics. Again, if you're not tracking this, I'm just going to be blunt. You can hate me if you want, okay? I'm just going to be blunt. If you're not tracking these 10, 11 things, you don't have a business, you have an expensive hobby. So, truth bombs for you guys. All right, so now that you're aware of these numbers, okay, knowing these numbers, it's just the first step, right? Because you need to find your numbers for these metrics. But that's just the first step. The real magic happens when you apply them to your business. Because when you see your numbers in black and white, it's like flipping the lights in a dark room. Okay, you suddenly know exactly where to move. It's like flying IFR, right? Where you know exactly which instrument to adjust. And once you have all these numbers, right, or these metrics, think of these as levers. And once you plug in your numbers and you have these levers, you know exactly which levers to pull in order to start growing. Okay? Because the last thing that I want right now is for you to have an epiphany, right? Oh, this is great, right? This is good stuff. But then doing nothing about it, right? Because it's one thing to learn, it's another thing to apply. And again, I I want you guys to grow. I want you guys to thrive in your business. Because like I said, I see everybody spinning their wheels. And the funny thing is in social media, everything's great, right? Everything is amazing. My business is amazing. But then when you start to sit down, or when I sit down with these businesses, that's when I hear the true stories, right? Social media is amazing, but then really there's struggles behind the scenes. And that's pretty common, right? So, and I don't want that to happen to you guys. I want to make sure, and that's why I did this. I want to make sure you understand your numbers, and then you make the decision on what you want to do. But even then, right now, you have this knowledge or you have this information, right? How can we turn this into action? How can we turn this into something tangible for your business? So, if you guys will allow me, I would like to make an offer right now for you guys that are watching and for people that are watching the replay today, just today, okay? So I want to invite you to a one-on-one strategy session with me, okay? So in this strategy session, it's going to take 2 hours, and we'll take your actual numbers. We'll plug them in to a custom working document, a custom sheet that I already built. All we got to do is plug in your numbers. And by the time we're done, 2 hours or however long it takes us, typically 2 hours, you will have a clear picture of where your business stands today. And you'll also have a step-by-step document telling you what to focus on next. And this is a tool, this is a sheet that you can update every week. And what it does is if you update it religiously and be honest with it, put down your real numbers, it will guide you. And it'll guide you in making decisions moving forward. Okay, so you're not guessing, it's not gut feeling, you're not operating your business by feel. It's the numbers that will tell you on what to do next. Now, normally this kind of session costs over $500. Okay, my hourly rate is $265 an hour. But because you joined me live today, and if you watch the replay, or for those who are watching the replay today only, okay, you can get the full 2-hour strategy session for only $297. Okay, so if you're serious about scaling, growing, and you're tired of guessing, this is your chance to finally get that clarity that you want. So I'm going to post the link on the invite. Let's see if I can get it. I'll post the link to sign up for this strategy session. I'll post it here. Let me know if you don't see it. If you don't see it, DM me and I'll send it to you. Okay, you can see it. Okay, it's right there. And yeah, so grab your spot, click the link, and what we'll do is we'll build your growth plan together. Okay, so I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Remember, growth isn't about doing more things. Okay, it's about knowing the right things, and I can't wait to help you find them. All right. If you have any questions, if I didn't see any questions on the comments, but if you do, I'll give a few seconds. If no questions, or if you want to just shoot me a DM directly, be happy to work with you on it. But again, this offer, this will only last today. Okay. So George is asking, sorry, my throat is ticklish. I put it on the, do you see it in there? The link. So I'll send it to you, Frank. I guess yeah, I posted it on the. Hold on, let's try this. Maybe because I'm logged in discussion. Okay, let me try it here on the discussion. Oh, I see it now. Okay, so I'll put it on the discussion. Let me know if you still don't see it. All right. All right. If you still don't see it, I'll put it on all the posts about this live stream. All right. And yeah, I appreciate you guys joining in. I know you guys are busy with your business, but yeah, let's I'd love to work with you and finding these numbers, plugging in your numbers, and again, I probably don't need to tell you what to do next once you have these numbers on the worksheet. It'll tell you what you need to do. And when you do it, you'll do it more confidently. All right, that's it for today's live stream. I'll see you around. Message me if you have any questions. And yeah, see you in the next one.